Welcome. Welcome to Life-Giving Leaders. This is one of my favorite times of the week, a time where we can dialogue around different aspects of what does it mean to be a life-giving leader and what does that look like in application. When we go into any work environment, if you think about anywhere you've ever worked, chances are it's either a life-giving experience or it is a life-depleting experience. You're either gaining energy and being energized by it, or you got to recover from it, right? And sometimes there are days where it can be either, depending on the situation, who you're working with, and all those kind of things. But what we want to do is we want to empower you with really practical tools and examples on how to ensure that your work environment is giving life to those that you're working with, not just your teams, but that the actual output and impact that you're having in your organization, in your industry, is life-giving. So life-giving leaders give life to their teams, but also enable those teams then to produce life, productivity, energy, whatever their value proposition is to whoever their customers are. This is the spirit of these conversations every Wednesday at 12 o'clock Eastern, 9 o'clock Pacific. Today's conversation is something that is unfortunately extremely prevalent in workplaces today, and it is specifically dealing with burnout. We hear this language a lot. I'm burning out. I'm on the verge of burnout. We're seeing signs of burnout, but this is a very real thing. And I want to offer some clarity on a couple of myths. We're going to address 3 myths that require clarification about burnout, and that'll help you determine how to lead your teams through burnout if they are experiencing it. The second thing we'll do is we're going to give 3 practical principles that you can apply to help support your teams if they're experiencing that. Okay, so first of all, when we talk about burnout, what are we talking about? What do we actually mean? What is burnout? And I'm going to define it in just a very simple way. Burnout is simply when you're burning out, when your energy is being depleted faster than it's being filled over an extended period of time. Again, burnout is when your energy is being depleted faster than it's being filled over an extended period of time. And the challenge with burnout is that it's not sustainable, right? It's rarely the byproduct of one big thing happening. It's usually the byproduct of a lot of little things or consistent things, big or small, consistent things happening over an extended period of time. And nobody is a victim to burnout. Why? Because it's about energy management. Now, some circumstances make it really, really hard to maintain our energy while fulfilling our responsibilities or meeting the expectations that are placed on us. But burnout, it's a byproduct of managing our energy. So again, definition of burnout is when your energy is depleting faster than when it's being filled over an extended period of time. So what do we do about this? First, I want to identify 3 myths, misunderstandings about burnout. And remember, I'm talking to you from a perspective of if you're leading a team, how can you help support your team as they're experiencing elements of burnout? But if you may not be leading a team directly, but these tips will also help you to manage your own energy as well. Okay, so first of all, we talk about energy, right? Burnout is about depleting energy rather than filling it. So what do I mean by energy? We're talking about 5 types of energy. We've got spiritual energy, physical energy, intellectual energy, creative energy, and emotional energy. 5 types. If you want to remember it, you can think about the acronym SPICE: spiritual, physical, intellectual, creative, and emotional. And so when we're dealing in a work environment and somebody is burning out, it's not always because of something that's happening in the work environment. Something can be happening at home. Something can be happening that's affecting their motivation. Something that can be happening with their health. All of these things can affect one's energy and how they manage it, and how it's being expended over time. There are things that will happen in the workplace. Here's a common one, is when companies experience layoffs, the remaining staff members have to do more work. Now we're doing more with fewer resources. In fact, if you think about it, if a company is laying off staff, it means they have to, they're behind the eight ball financially, or they're anticipating that they will be if something doesn't change. And so that puts more pressure. So even without the layoffs, existing staff would have to do more. But after the layoffs, the remaining staff members now find themselves struggling with guilt because they got to stay while their colleagues didn't. They find themselves feeling like they have to make up for the gaps that are now existing. They find themselves having to wear 2, 3 hats at a time. They feel this pressure to perform, but it's not sustainable. So what do we do as leaders, especially if you may be a top leader, you may be the CEO or the executive running a department, you may be middle leadership or frontline leadership where you're accountable to other leaders and you're kind of caught in the middle, where you have these expectations and demands and you're trying to buffer your team, but you're also trying to get your team as productive as possible. These are very, very real challenges that people are facing every single day, and you may be able to relate to some of these challenges. Well, let me help you with 3 myths to clarify and 3 principles that you can put into practice to support your teams through burnout. Myth number 1 is that burnout is the result of too much work. That is a myth. Burnout may be the result of too much work, but it is possible to have more work than you can handle and not be burnt out. It is also possible to be burnt out and it have nothing to do with the volume or quantity of work that you have. It's about energy management. And so when we think about the 5 types of energy, spiritual, physical, intellectual, creative, and emotional, any one of those factors can be affected. And so maybe some of those factors, like maybe physical or creative or intellectual, maybe some of those factors are affected by volume, sheer volume of work. But it's very rarely that the root of burnout is volume. It can be a contributor, but it's very rarely the actual root cause. The second myth about burnout is this. Now I'm talking to you leaders. The myth is this: I can prevent my team's burnout by subjecting myself to burnout instead. That feels like good leadership, doesn't it? Sacrifice yourself for the team. Take one for the team. Well, that's actually a really helpful principle, and it has a time and a place. But in terms of operating in a sustained way, it's not going to work as a solution to prevent your team from burnout. Here's why. If I, as the leader, am burning out, I am more likely to subject my team to be more at risk of burning out themselves. I can't support them as well. I'm not showing up fresh. I'm not as available to them typically because I myself am burning out. So if I want to manage my energy, I want to lead by example. Look at the 2 aspects of the equation of burnout. There's the energy depletion and there's the energy filling. So it's about filling my energy faster than I'm depleting it. So you can play with both sides of that equation to help manage your own energy in a sustainable way. So if I find I'm depleting energy faster than I'm filling energy, I can slow the burn on the depletion. I can also find mechanisms to increase and maintain my energy. And this is where we use the language of rest. And I like to define rest as simply those activities which replenish your energy. Rest is those activities which replenish your energy. Sleep is obviously a natural physical form of rest. Your body is literally replenishing its strength, its energy, and processing while you're sleeping. Well, there are also mechanisms that we can put in place to replenish our energy. Even small micro mechanisms. I used to burn out. I used to sprint marathon distances and burn myself out, usually about a year and a half of just consistently go, 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 late nights, weekends, nonstop. And it wasn't sustainable until finally my body would crash. I'd get sick. I'd be forced to take time off or maybe use the vacations that I had accumulated and didn't utilize. And I would say this, I need a vacation. Have any of you ever said this? Oh man, I just need a vacation. But maybe you don't have the funds, maybe you don't have the time, maybe you have both, but you still feel guilty to take the time off. Whatever it is, vacation is never a solution for burnout. I repeat, Taking a vacation is never a solution for burnout. Why? Because burnout is the problem that is the byproduct of a sustained motion where energy is being depleted more than it's being replenished. It's a problem of something that happened over an extended period of time. Usually it's a problem, it's an output of our rhythms, our habits, our ongoing reality. And so you can go on a vacation, you can have an amazing vacation and come back absolutely refreshed and be burnt out again by next Thursday because we haven't changed the habits that got us there to begin with. So myth number one is that burnout is a byproduct of too much work. Myth number two is that I, as the leader, can prevent my team's burnout by subjecting myself to burnout. No, you can't. You're just delaying the process and sacrificing yourself in the meantime. So you want to, as a leader, I want to lead by example in how I'm managing my team. I want to demonstrate for them what it looks like to manage my energy so that I can help them with tips and tools and support to manage theirs. The third of the three myths is that signs of burnout are always visible. You won't always know when a team member is burning out. I'm sorry. It depends on them how much they decide to share. Some personalities are really, really good at showing up and putting on the face and doing what they got to do and dying inside. And one day they don't show up to work. Or one day you get a letter of resignation and you didn't see it coming. And you say, I must be a bad leader. I should have seen it coming. Not necessarily. It depends on what each member chooses to share. And of course, as leaders, we cannot ever force anyone to share anything, especially if it's personal and it's dealing with their own mental health. However, what we can do is create environments where they feel safe and they trust you, and you can give them opportunities to share, and it's up to them if they choose to take those opportunities. So recap of the three myths, and then we'll go into the three principles that you can apply to help support your team. Number one, burnout is the result of too much work. Not necessarily. Number two, I can prevent my team's burnout by subjecting myself to burnout instead. It's not instead, it's just first or maybe at the same time. And the third is that signs of burnout are always visible. They might not be. And that's what leads us to our three tips. Tip number one, stay curious. It's a posture. It's a mindset. Stay curious. Curious from a place of caring. And so I like to, when I have my regular one-on-ones, ask team members generally, how are you doing? I remember the first time my manager asked me this question. It blew my mind because nobody had ever asked me that question before. He asked me this question. He says, Mike, how's your work-life balance? I loved that question. My goodness, it took me aback because it's communicated so many things when he said, how is your work-life balance? Number one, it communicates, Mike, I care about you. Number two, it communicates, I don't want you to burn yourself out at home or sacrifice your home life or your personal life in exchange for your work life. And number three, it took it a step further and communicated, I am here to support you and maybe even help keep you accountable to having a strong balance in your life. Why? So that you can operate in a sustained way over time. I so appreciated that question, and I now utilize it myself. How's your work-life balance? And it can lead to some really interesting conversations about how you can support your team members, how they're feeling about their work-life balance, and we can get ahead of shifts before people start to feel burnt out or feel like they need to make a change in their career. The second tip, so number one, stay curious, ask questions, give them opportunities to check in. How are you doing? How's your work-life balance is a beautiful way in a non-intrusive but very inviting way to give them an opportunity. Number two, offer resources. Often companies will have resources that they can tap into. You can point them to hannahstrategy.com. We have an amazing program around defining your next chapter with clarity and confidence and getting to know yourself and teaching you how to manage your energy in a sustainable way. But you can point them to various resources that either are available through the company or different resources that you may have come across. If you have an HR department or a people department, you can go to your HR business partner and you can ask them, hey, And don't wait until there's an emergency. Ask them ahead of time. Hey, what resources do we have? If any of my team members start to feel like they're burning out, what can I offer them as resources that we have available to us as an organization, or other resources you may have seen that could be helpful? So just point them to resources, and it's up to them what they want to do with them, and if they want to utilize them or not. You just want to let them know that they're available. The third tip, so number one, stay curious. Number two, offer resources. Number three, offer flexibility. Offer flexibility. Now, sometimes logistically, you can't always, for example, if someone's doing a physical job, physical labor or something, you have to physically show up. But sometimes there are accommodations that we can make to offer flexibility to help them manage their energy. And they won't always ask this. So sometimes you need to give some examples. So for example, if somebody knows that they work best at a certain time of day, allow them to adjust their schedule to work at those times of day. Again, sometimes there are logistical things, like there are team meetings and things like that, but help them to maximize their work time and when they do their best work and when they're in the zone. Maybe there are times when they want to be most productive, and those are times you want to not run team meetings or one-on-ones, and you want to actually honor and protect those times. Maybe there are times where they just want a change of environment and just go work somewhere else for a while. Maybe you have an office that they can come in. Maybe they don't have to come in every day. Maybe they do have to. There's just lots of different things. But when you think about it, you want to think about when they're working, where they're working, and how they're working, the tools that you want to give them, who they're working with. Sometimes you can energize somebody just by giving them a gentle change. So an example, teaming somebody up with somebody from another team. They don't have to work on the project together, but just sitting together, meeting someone, having the opportunity to bring a little bit of something energizing, something a little bit new. But it starts with what? It starts with the first tip of staying curious. Why? Because if I know the individual team member, then I can offer support that is conducive to them. Because something that is helpful for one team member is not necessarily helpful for somebody else. So it starts with getting to know them. We talked about this previously in a previous session of Life-Giving Leaders, where I asked the question, I like to, early in a working relationship, you can ask it anytime, but there are a couple of questions that I like to ask. Remember, one of them is, how do you like to be recognized? And we talk about, do they like to be recognized with monetary gifts? Do they like to be recognized publicly? Do they like to be recognized privately with a handwritten note? How do you like to be recognized? And the other is, how do you like to receive feedback? Another thing is simply, what keeps you energized? That's a wonderful question. What keeps you energized? Maybe somebody likes to work in small teams. Maybe somebody likes to work independently. And the less human interaction you give them, the more energized, the more productive they will be. No problem. Maybe somebody's really struggling with their work discipline and they just need a daily 5-minute check-in. No problem. We support them with what they need. For those of you who are finding you yourself are facing signs of burnout, whether you're a leader or whether you're an individual contributor, here's an important element. Ask for help. You don't have to literally say, I'm struggling with burnout. You can if you want to. It's perfectly appropriate. But you don't have to. You can just say, I need help. The best leaders in the world have mastered the art of asking for help. Because leadership is not about individual performance. It's about utilizing the relationships and the ecosystem that you've developed in order to bring the best to the table and bring the best for the organization. And so I always want to be willing to ask for help. Sometimes you don't know the exact help that you need. You just know that you need help. That's okay. A little bit of transparency goes a long way. An example might be, hey, I'm usually a pretty disciplined person, but I've noticed the last couple of months I'm finding it a little harder I'm having slower starts to my days, especially if you're working from home. This could be true. No problem, share that and say, hey, I'm committed to doing this. So can we have a daily check-in, or 9 a.m. 5-minute check-in, or maybe what I'll do, heads up, I'm just going to reach out to a team member, or maybe you're going to schedule little mechanisms, schedule little check-ins with your team members along the way. The point is, I'm using this as an example only, but the point is you're willing to ask for help, and you're doing it from a posture that you're committed to bringing your best to the table, and we all need help to bring our best to the table. I want to address one last element that leaders, we often can struggle with. We need to show up for our team members. Sometimes we just don't feel strong enough, sharp enough, energized enough. And there's nothing more life draining than showing up in front of others and faking it and pretending and being disingenuous and unauthentic. I've tried it. It sucks. It's not sustainable. I feel like I'm dying inside every time I would show up in an environment and fake it. That expression, fake it till you make it, is one of the most destructive expressions I have encountered. Do not fake it. Now, what do I do then? If I don't want to fake it and experience that feeling, that icky feeling when you're showing up, you're faking it, you're not authentic. But you also don't want to show up and be this volatile leader where people show up, they don't know what to expect, and then your drained energy is contagious and your bad mood is contagious. There is a balance and there is a way, right? So we don't just want to be volatile leaders, but we also don't want to be disingenuous. So what do? If we wake up, or if we're walking into a thing and we really aren't feeling it? First of all, it's okay that you're not feeling it. Second of all, I take a posture and I say, this is for whoever's in the room. I'm showing up for them. I'm not going to fake it, but I can do a couple of things to help me get into the moment that's in front of me. Number one, simple breathing exercise. It takes only a few seconds. I can breathe in for 3 seconds, out for 7. I can do box breathing with the 4 seconds in, hold, 4 seconds out, hold, and repeat that. I could use a couple of breathing exercises that help me. I can close my eyes while doing it, help me be in the moment. What I like to do, I'm working from home. I'll sit outside on the porch, just outside, listen to the birds. If it's a season where I can hear the birds, feel the sun, if the sun's out, listen to some water, maybe listen to a favorite song. There are these micro moments that you can create for yourself to re-energize, help you enter the moment, re-ground yourself, and come in, maybe not on fire with joy in life, but you can be in the moment and be ready to serve. Okay? And so we don't want to fake it, but we do want to show up even when we don't feel like it. Okay? So let's do a quick recap. We defined burnout as being when your energy is being depleted more rapidly than it's being filled over an extended period of time. That is what leads to burnout. We identified 3 myths. Number 1 is that burnout is the result of too much work. Contributor, not necessarily the root. Very rarely is it the root. Number 2, I can prevent burnout as a leader. I can prevent my team's burnout by subjecting myself to burnout. And the third myth is that signs of burnout are always visible, not necessarily. The 3 tips: stay curious, offer resources, and offer flexibility to help them manage their energy in ways that are sustainable. For Life Giving Leaders members, we are now going to enter into membership discussion. If you're curious about membership, just click the link at the bottom of this video that talks about Life Giving Leaders memberships. If you want to learn more about Hannah Strategy's leadership development, we offer coaching and training for your organization, as well as one-on-one coaching. And so we're happy to have a chat with you, learn more about your situation. Just simply click the link below or go to hannahstrategy.com and click Let's Chat. Don't forget, please, if you're getting value out of this, like, subscribe, share, all of that, so we can stay connected and really build a community of life-giving leaders. Members, we will see you in the Zoom room just now.